The Cedric medal is nerfed. New classes are on the horizon, and Guild Wars Week is upon us on PC, mobile, Xbox, and PlayStation. Let's jump the heck into this weekly preview. So first things first, we've got the Medal of Cedric becoming a regular rarity medal here in terms of what it can do. So previously this was doing 40% chance to cleanse on every turn. Now it's only a 10% chance, which means now I'm probably not going to use it because I'm not going to depend on this random chance. So the great news about this is that other medals now actually have value. So that is a change that I am extremely happy was made. Now you can see my medal setup looks nothing like it would have if this nerf had not been done. All of my favorite classes and troops still work, so hooray hooray. That is a major change worth noting. You should have a little gift in your mailbox there from the devs to explain what's going on. But that was a very significant change. On the adventure board side, there's Deeds of Stone. I'm chucking all my Deeds of Stone into the Blackhawk Kingdom. The reason for this, of course, is because you get the attack stat. Brown is not used for magic stat, so it makes sense to throw your brown into some kind of attack stat kingdom, and this one has an underworld faction associated with it. So Blackhawk is where I'm chucking my brown deeds. Beyond all of that, in the event keys this time around, we have Gulvania troops. Gulvania? You decide. But in the Gulvania Kingdom, there's actually some mix of terrible news and some cool news. So the terrible news is that if you're opening them up hoping to get some mythics, you're going to get one of these too, and Draculus is not the one you want. But the Grey King, however, is, and he is destroying all gems of a chosen color, and then all of those people that you hit that have that mana color take true damage, and then they get mana drained and silenced and frozen. So the effect of this is super crazy. Like, this is an insanely good effect. So people who have watched my streams know that running a double Grey King is super useful. The reason is you can take advantage of this magic pumping thing. Every 4 or 5 match you do, all undead allies are getting an extra 2 armor and magic. He's undead himself, so if you run 2 Grey Kings, both of them are getting 4 extra magic every single time you do some kind of extra turn loop. So Grey King, super amazing troop. If you only have one of them, maybe you want to take a chance on another, but honestly that's a little crazy. I would probably wait till you can craft him one day. However, the new troop, Dullahan, is in there, and I am not a fan of this dude. So he's doing damage to an enemy, and then the boost is based on all the people that have died, so like Gargantar. But the boost is so bad, so like you'd have to kill or lose 1,000 people for this to be interesting. Quite literally 1,000 people to ever get me to consider this guy. And then he either kills your top troop or their top troop. So this troop is just like wild. Like I don't really see any value in this troop. So when you're trying to think of combos that you could potentially deal with, Frost Feather, somebody, if he dies, he freezes the entire enemy team. Like the Death Knight class, if it dies, it'll death mark everybody on the other team. Lust, if Lust is on your team and someone on your team dies, then it charms the other team. There's some weird combos like that. But honestly, this troop is just not good. I would really not see any value in this troop. Summoning lineups are very poor as far as their constructs are concerned. They're not very useful. They're not very fast. So I would rank this troop a good old 0 as far as usefulness. However, I'd love for you guys to prove me wrong, so feel free to prove me wrong and make something useful with this. I suspect it will not be as good as any other team that is just not trying to take advantage of really weird setups and mechanics and random chance. Umberwolf is also in the event keys, so if you're looking for a soul farming team, Umberwolf is a very classic troop. He's creating a dark storm at the start of every turn, so this is going to enable you to run something like Dragon Soul and a Pharaoh's Ra, and then potentially another Pharaoh's Ra if you've got one, to keep the dark storm train running. But that's what's going on in your event keys this time around. As far as the new troop in the Glory Shop, not in the thing over there, in the Glory Shop, it's Vlad the Unsated. So Vlad is a little more interesting, and kind of what I like about him, I wouldn't say I'm ever going to use him, but it's nice that he's stealing life from an enemy, so this is like true damage essentially and gaining life for this troop. But then it's boosted by their own life on a 3-to-1. So this means like if you actually can get this troop a lot of life, you can start to sap like a decent amount of life. There's other troops that do this more interestingly, like troops that you would care more about boosting their life on. Someone like a Yao, for instance, would be someone that does way more useful things with extra life, as well as like a Ketris does way more interesting things boosted by life. However, it's kind of fun. This troop isn't like entirely useless. They can be like the, the poor man's version of a Yao or a Ketris in some respect if you're trying to do some life boosting mechanics. But overall, not necessarily the most inspiring troop. But you do get some 2 arcanes out of it, so feel free to jump into the Glory Shop and snag you some of that. As far as the event this time around, it is Guild Wars. Everybody get your suits of armor ready and let's go. Make sure you are jumping in and upgrading your Sentinels. This is super important. It applies to everybody in your guild that is above you in Guild Wars rank, so this is absolutely important. And even if you don't care about your guild, because you're a selfish SOB, this gives you your own stats, so if you feel like being useful in your own right, this is not an insignificant number of stats. This is actually a very decent amount of stats. It doesn't cost that much to get it up to 5. I recommend you get it up to 5. As far as your defenses, make sure you set them. Those are mine. Feel free to glance at them. Whoa, those are my defenses. I'm probably going to be changing some of them prior to the actual event start. But make sure you're jumping in there, buying your Sentinels, setting your defenses, getting ready for Guild Wars Day tomorrow. As far as the Soulforge this time around, there's some cool stuff. So we actually have Famine in there, who's kind of interesting. Super hard nuker, drains all mana from the other team. So this is kind of fun. At the start of your turn, 3 skill points are taken, or they just lose, I should say. 3 random skill points at the start of every turn. So Famine, kind of interesting, not necessarily the best one to craft out of this mix, because Arachnine Weaver's in there. So Arachnine Weaver is impervious and has a chance to summon a web spinner when someone dies. He's stealthy, so all 3 of his traits are super sick. And then he webs everyone and he casts him, does 34 true damage to the last 2 enemies, and then if any of them die, it explodes the entire board. So if you have some other kind of true damage setup, something like a Tina, something like the Thunderbird weapon that just came out with the Stormcaller class, even heck a Draculus, like anything that's doing true damage to the bottom 2 troops in any capacity, if you start it with that troop and then you end it with Arachnine Weaver, it's an extremely potent combo, because not only will you end up killing 2 people, or at least 1, you then explode the entire board, and if you happen to have lost anybody, you're summoning a web spinner, which is not a crappy troop. So Arachnine Weaver's in there. However, the highest priority craft in here, if you don't have them, would be Mr. High King Iron Gut, who turns his attack into % to devour. So this guy is a delving staple. If you are not able to be delving super quickly or efficiently just yet, you are probably missing this man, because once you have High King Iron Gut, delving becomes just an insignificant, chore at this point. It just becomes an ingot farming mechanic at that point. So if you have High King Iron Gut, awesome for you. If you do not, he's available to craft in the Soulforge this time around. He gets the Keylime seal of approval for the one you should be crafting. If you already have him, Arachnine Weaver would be my alternate. Famine or Champion of Anu, not necessarily a high value craft, so I'd probably ignore them. As far as the Soulforge is concerned on the weapon side, the only thing that's in here is the Wall of Oblivion, which is kinda not great, so would not recommend that. And then also the Doomseath is in there. So Doomseath, or Scythe, depending on how you pronounce that, is an incredibly good Doom weapon. So all of these Doom weapons that are doing damage to all and then converting into Doom Skulls are super sick. So if you do not happen to have a Doomseath or Scythe, then I would recommend you get them. These weapons are just so high value that not having them is pretty darn rough. So if you're missing it, go ahead and grab you some of that. But that is everything that's normal in the game. Let's jump on into the spoilers. The spoiler section. For the spoilers section, on Tuesday we have a Sunken Fleet faction assault. I'd love to show you the actual kingdom, but you may have noticed this bug where they're all missing, or at least a bunch of them are missing. So I can't exactly show you the kingdom, but since I love you guys so darn much, I just made the team elsewhere anyway so I could show it to you. But this is the team that I end up using. The code for this will be in the description, but of course it's using a High King Iron Gut, Possessed King, Ysabelle, and the Mountain Crusher. So tons of value, tons of great ways to smash through every single little thing. That'll get you to level 500 if you so choose. From the pet rescue on Wednesday, it is going to be Mini Mimic. So this is of course super great because this is giving you a gold bonus. Gold bonus is super nice to have. It is just passive globally all the time, so make sure that you're taking advantage of that on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we get a new class, and it is Mr. Diablo. So Diabloist here is the new class. It is a Daemon type, so this is our second Daemon type class. This one is arguably better, however, I hope they change something about it. So the talent tree setup that we get is Death, Chaos, and Fire. So Fire, of course, is super noteworthy because of this Fire Blade. This is doing triple skull damage to burning enemies, which is super great. You'll also get bonus red mana here at level 70, so that's kind of fun. There's nothing super crazy about the rest of this, admittedly. So like the Death Tree and the Chaos Tree, not necessarily the most exciting. You do have an opportunity to start with an Ice Storm or a Firestorm with this class, so that can be kind of fun. But the other, actually, you know what, I'll give some props to this. When an enemy dies, you freeze another. I've found that this is kind of a fun way to cascade your advantage. So that's kind of fun. But overall, the talent tree isn't looking super exciting. But then we get to the traits, and I get even less excited. Because this trait 3 is a whole heaping pile of garbage. So a Health Steed, 25% chance to summon. Summoning a Nightmare whenever you cast a spell at 25% of the time might be worse than any other trait 3 that I've ever seen. So I'm gonna pray to God that we get some Stormcaller love like we got last time around, and this third trait gets some kind of revision before this gets released. If this gets released as is, then this class is really just gonna be like a okay Fireblade type kind of class. So I'm not exactly super pumped about this class at all unless this third trait gets changed to something awesome, like something pretty awesome, because the talent trees are already lacking a little bit here. As far as the weapon that comes with it, so it's doing damage to all enemies boosted by Daemon allies, not that high of a boost, only a 3x, and then it curses and burns everybody. So again, this doesn't have any like loop potential. This weapon doesn't have any loop potential. And as far as what it's gaining in an upgrade, there's really nothing in here that's exciting either, so this weapon isn't very great either. So I'm hoping that this class and this weapon gets a little love. I'm sure the weapon won't change, but that class, man, that class is breaking my heart here. It's really not that great. It has a super sick symbol though, so props for that, hooray. But overall, it's not really looking all too hot here as far as the Diabloist is concerned. So we'll have to see if anything gets any better with that. But that is everything going on this week on the PC, mobile, Xbox, PS4 side of the world. Let's jump on over to the Switchy Switchers. Good morning, my Switchers. So, for you guys, first of all, check out the adventure board, because the Deeds of Stone are in there, and you get some Imperial deeds. I'm chucking mine into the Blackhawk Kingdom because you get the attack stat for this. There's also a competing, or partner I should say, Underworld Kingdom that will associate with this later. So, this is something that I would be chucking my brown deeds into. It will pay off. The brown color is not used for any magic stats, so it's safe to throw them here for attack stat, which I would rate as the second most valuable next to magic. So that is that. In the event keys this time around for you guys, it is the Mist of Scales Kingdom, because it is a Mist of Scales kind of themed week. So Mist of Scales, not necessarily the most exciting of kingdoms. Don't look at everything that's sitting in here, for instance, and I actually have to show you all because I don't have the mythic in there. But the mythic in there is Urali, or Urali as I always say. I don't know which is correct. But the most noteworthy thing about this troop is that they are Scorpius's best friend. So Scorpius is a troop that'll do lethal damage to 2 troops and kill them if they're poisoned. Urali, I'm never going to say it right. Is poisoning everybody on 4 or 5 matches. So if you have the 2 of them on the same team and can loop a lot, this will just allow you to kill people outright with Scorpius. Super fun. Beyond all of that, she's doing true damage to all enemies boosted by Naga and undead allies. So not necessarily the best spell effect, admittedly. The boost ratio is fairly poor on this. So there's nothing super great about this troop, admittedly, aside from her partnering with Scorpius, so I would not recommend opening up event keys just to get that. The only reason I would potentially offer you should open up event keys is actually because of this guy. So Taipan, if you're not familiar, is an empowered converter, which means he starts with full mana. You can use him right away, and he transforms all brown to red. This troop is excessively good and excessively used constantly, so if you do not have yourself a copy of Taipan, I would recommend opening event keys to get that. However, if you already got Taipan, there's really nothing else too exciting in there, so would not necessarily recommend opening up any kinds of event keys. But for the guild event this time around, you guys have the invasion, so it's time to beat up some towers. So then when we look at the team we could be using, fortunately or unfortunately, there's a team that really, to me, makes the most sense, and it's taking advantage of 2 empowered converters, and then a Mang, and then the new troop. So the new troop that we've got here is a Naga herself. This is doing 31 damage to a tower, so nothing too exciting there. Of course, it's boosted by Ascensions, but then it charms a random enemy, so this isn't the worst on the planet. The nice thing about charm in a invasion event is that if they have a bunch of barriers up, for instance, this will help you potentially pop 1 or 2 of them as a result of that. So not the worst troop on the planet. Charm isn't the worst. Nothing too excessively awesome here. The spell reduction is kind of nice, because when you're getting hit from all the tower damage over there, it'll hurt them a little less. So that part's useful. Not the worst thing in the world as far as a team goes. So this is going to get you tons of red mana as a result of this, and some healing. So Naga Queen is giving all allies 19 life, and then you're also converting yellows to reds. And no one on this team uses yellow, so that's great. The only thing that I'm not in love with is Taipan, so he's converting away all browns to reds. So this is useful, but you also kind of want browns around just to make sure you're burying your hero, which is going to be Titan class for this time around. So this is the team that I propose makes the most sense. This should be usable for all levels of players, since all of these troops are fairly common. So that is the team. Feel free to grab the description to get the code. The other new troop that you guys have access to in the Glory Shop is the Skulkfang, who looks all kinds of crazy. It's like Man Medusa. But Man Medusa here is dealing 26 damage to the weakest enemy and then poisoning them, so this is a very unexciting troop as far as the spell effect is concerned, and there's really nothing exciting in the trait section either. So feel free to go ahead and get yourself some Skulkfang if you so choose. I would recommend at least getting 1 copy. Or if you're looking for some arcanes, it's not really the best time to do it since it's only the 300 kind. Nothing too crazy there. As far as the weapon that you can get from the event this time, so if you buy up to tier 3, you are getting access to the Cobra's Curse. So this, in theory, is a cool weapon. So this is creating a mix based on Naga allies, and it's making red and green. So this is super fun. The nice thing about it making green is that it itself takes green, so that's kind of cool. When we look into the upgrades on the weapon, though, there's nothing really good in here. So Naga teams right now are not very exciting or interesting or useful. The Naga class assassin is actually kind of useful. So if they ever do create some kind of useful Naga out there for us to use, this could be a interesting weapon to have. So would strongly recommend, as always, to get up to the weapon tier because you want to have all of those weapons. Do not be the person that misses those weapons. And then we get to the Soulforge side of the conversation. So for the Soulforge side of the conversation, there are a couple things that I would recommend are worth taking a look at. The first is Voice of Orpheus. So this is cleansing all allies when matching yellow gems, so this is kind of sick. You'll always have the ability to cleanse all the time, and it's super hard to make him stop because he's impervious, so you can't really stun him. So this guy is going to keep your team nice and cleanliness, no germs, 99% of all bacteria destroyed. This is your guy. This is also doing a hefty amount of damage here, so it's boosted by all of the mana you've accumulated. I almost said that word wrong. So if everyone on your team has 15 mana, for instance, he's going to be doing an extra 60 damage on top of this, so that would hit for like 88 on my game. So that's a pretty decent chunk of damage right there. And then of course he also just cleanses again, because he's all about purification here. And then he also is giving all allies 5 mana when you cast him. So if they weren't full before, they're a lot closer or full now. So Voice of Orpheus I consider to be a very high value troop. You can never have too much cleanse here. The fact that he's a very good cleanser and he's also a very good damage dealer, super noteworthy. However, the other troop that you'd have to consider is the Wild Queen. So if Voice of Orpheus is like a defensive kind of guy, this is like your ultimately offensive kind of girl. So from a trait perspective, there's nothing too exciting in here. This summoning a Bone Storm thing when an ally dies can either make or break you. This is kind of why she's the Wild Queen, because if someone on your team dies, this is either going to set you up to lose or win. So, just try not to die so you don't have to start playing with those odds. But what she's doing is stealing attack from a target enemy and then giving it to your first troop. So suddenly someone on their team is doing basically no skull damage, and now someone on your team is doing a ton of skull damage. That would be fun. But then she also makes a mix of skulls and green gems, and like a lot of them. So this is kind of crazy. So when it comes to the Wild Queen, not only is she a really good mana generator for green mana, she's also giving somebody a crap ton of attack and then creating a crap ton of skills to let them start hitting people. So Wild Queen is someone that is super fun, super great. Between the two, as far as Voice of Orpheus and the Wild Queen goes, I honestly could not tell you which one that you should craft over the other. I use both a decent amount. I would admittedly say I use the Wild Queen more. However, Voice of Orpheus is also an extremely good utility play in something like a Guild Wars, for instance. So either or, you're not going to be unhappy if you craft either of those. But that is everything for you guys in the regular section. Let's jump on in to the spoilers. In the spoilers section for you guys, we have the Warren's Kingdom is going to be your faction assault on Tuesday. So if you jump into not the portal section, but the delve section, you can see that this is the team that I use. So this is a Mountain Crusher with an Apothecary. You can switch out Apothecary with Queen Ysabelle if you would like. And then High King Iron Gut and Possess King. This team, both of those teams that I mentioned, will get you all the way to 500 if you so choose. The one tip that I'll always give is that let Trickster, if he flips you once, let him flip you again and then kill them. Some people like to run a lineup where they intentionally let you flip him once. I hate that. So don't plan to lose or plan to fail. Plan to take advantage of the scenario if you do get flipped. So if you get flipped, let them flip you again. Otherwise, the rest of the delve is not going to be a fun time. But that is the team that I run all the way through, so that will get you there. Next up is on Wednesday, there's a new pet, and it's the one I've got on my shoulder right there. It's the one that I wear. It's the Hoodoo doll. It doesn't do anything, but looks super fly on my shoulder, so feel free to take advantage of that on Wednesday. But then Friday, you guys get the War Priest class. So War Priest class, admittedly, what is going on? Oh, this game is so busted right now. So I can't show you the War Priest class, but the War Priest class is basically a 40% skill reduction class that's there. You know what? No, I'm not going to let you guys suffer like this. I'm going to open up Terran's World live on this video and show you the War Priest class. Game be damned. They are trying to not allow me to do it. But the War Priest class is here, and basically it is getting you 50% chance to stun a random enemy at the start of your turn, so this is actually pretty useful here. Beyond all that, it gets skill reduction, as I mentioned, by 40%, so that's also cool. From the tree's point of view, it's a little less exciting. However, the light tree is also nice because you're able to get 2 life on every 4 or 5 match to all allies, so this is kind of fun. You can also start with a light storm, so that's also kind of fun. There's nothing else too exciting in the light tree. From the war tree, at least, if you get it up to 70, this will allow you to enrage yourself on 4 or 5 matches, so that's kind of fun. You can also increase your attack in a couple different spots here, so that's also kind of fun. And then unfortunately you have the morale tree, which is kind of really nothing all that special. The only thing that's fun about the morale tree for at least this class is that since they have skull reduction, you're always going to be running this troop or this hero class in the front slot. So I would strongly recommend you get yourself up to, for this class to take the most advantage of it, level 70 is the one to get to. Unfortunately, at time of release, I didn't find the War Priest class all that exciting. However, eventually this class became one of my favorites, actually. So it's worth investing some time in here to get this up. Again, level 70 is kind of that target level to get to. However, the weapon here is kind of interesting. So the weapon here is actually the symbol of Anu, and it's draining mana from an enemy and then dealing damage, so that part's kind of fun. But then it's also creating gems of that color, or at least a color that they have. So this is a way of potentially looping. So this is a super annoying weapon to use against the other team because you're draining mana, you're also creating mana. But then also what's cool about this weapon is that you give barrier to yourself, you cleanse yourself, you give everyone on your team mana. Super duper fun. So this weapon, when it first came out, I had a lot of fun with. It's actually pretty interesting. The fact that you cleanse and bury yourself and the fact that it potentially loops makes this weapon actually kind of interesting. But that is the class, that is the weapon. Again, at time of release, this wasn't necessarily the best class for me. However, eventually I learned to love this class. So It pairs very nicely with Divine Ysabelle. I'll just kind of throw that out there. Eventually there'll be a mixed weapon that also makes this class super great. So if I'm at all teasing this correctly, I would probably say it's worth investing whenever there's a class event for this class, because it will eventually, if not immediately for you, be a very useful one. But that is everything that the game's got going on, as much as it was trying to fight me to show it to you, for the Switch folks. And that's all she wrote. So, if your game is like mine, and apparently everyone in my guilds, you are probably experiencing all kinds of weird bugs where classes are missing, troops are missing, kingdoms are missing, at least in the underworld. So hopefully that gets taken care of, because that's going to be super duper annoying. But everyone, enjoy getting your new classes on Friday. Enjoy the game, enjoy Guild Wars, enjoy smashing towers. So that is all going on for this week. Praise the devs for nerfing Cedric, and pray that the devs fix whatever bugs are going on right now so Guild Wars doesn't look like a total mess. But that is all, and I will talk to you guys in the next one.